system, right? An interrupt is a that you can why an interrupt is a signal that is sent to the processor that interrupts the current process. Anything will block that we can call an interrupt.
Hello, sir.
And
Hello, sir.
yeah, hello.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. Sir, could you please speak a little bit louder?
Sure. I'll wait.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we were discussing what was an interrupt is that, and an interrupt will be that this is particular a particular source. It can be a hardware or it can be a software that will be interrupting the processor, and a hardware or software will interrupt the current the processing of the operating system by sending an interrupt service request. That is an IRQ. This IRQ means it is a request given to the operating system or the what we say or the current processing, saying that see I have an interrupt, I have a block, I have need to complete some so and so operation, something like that. Right? And you will be heard about the common terms maskable and non-maskable interrupts. You will be know about that. The maskable interrupts are those interrupts that we can mask and we can mask in between, and non-maskable interrupts are the most important interrupts which cannot be blocked, which cannot have to be serviced urgently. Right, that you'll be heard about that, right? Some usual terms related to interrupts that I'm saying. And in this session, we are talking about we will be calling further that interrupt service routine by the name ISR. You'll be normal, right? And there will be lots of interrupts is coming. And if you are considering about a particular ith interrupt, say for example, I can be any number, ith interrupt, then that particular interrupt will be followed by ISRI. Right? That ISRI means the interrupt service routine for the ith interrupt, right? So that's okay. We'll go for. So before, the next one is interrupt service routine. What do you mean by an interrupt service routine? So far I have told that hardware resource or software resource is going to interrupt the operating system by giving an interrupt service routine, interrupt service request, IRQ. After getting an interrupt service request, a particular software process will be invoked. That is a service to be followed. Or I can say an interrupt service routine is a software process involved by an interrupt request, that is an IRQ from a hardware device or a software device as well. Right? Now, this ISR, this interrupt service routine, handles the request and sends it to the CPU, interrupting the active process that the CPU is doing currently. Thus, the ISR is also called an interrupt handler. So I can say that this interrupt service routine also called an interrupt handler because it is sending to the CPUs and you know that ISR will be having high priorities over operating system function and application tasks. Why we are saying that? Because ISR has the highest priority. If the OS is following with its own functions or some application it is doing, and then ISR comes, it has to be given the highest priority. It has to be service first. Right. And an ISR is not going to wait for any semaphore or any mailbox message or any message queue. The ISR is not going to wait because that's the highest priority. This will be obviously ISR, usual cases, ISR will not wait for any mutual exclusion of from mutex also it will not wait. But it will wait sometime. When it will wait, suppose, what do you mean by a mutual exclusion? A mutual exclusion, mutex part means what? There will be some critical code, it has to be executed, right? Some critical code, some sharing, data sharing area, the area of the program where some data sharing is happening, we will usually call. There is a possibility of deadlock, something like that happening, we will call that the critical section, right? If that for this particular critical section also, ISR usually will not wait. But there is a possibility that this ISR will wait. When it will wait, if that particular critical code will contain some data whose data is needed for our ISR. On that particular question only what ISR will be waited. Usual case ISR will not wait. What I am going to tell you in this particular slide is that ISR is not going to wait for any other request like semaphore, mailbox, or mutex, something. Okay. Now, how we are going to handling the interrupt in the RTOS environment. Now, before going to that, let me ask you one question. Why we are giving so much importance for handling this interrupt in RTOS environment. Because we may have already discussed in the previous semesters that in how interrupts are going to be handled in the microprocessor in some other operating system, right? And if some error is some request from the hardware source coming, then that will be discussed. That will be handled by the operating system. And we may have discussed some allocating algorithms in the interrupt service routine. There will be some scheduling methodology, etc. Task scheduling methodologies, algorithms, first come first serve, shortest job first. Everything some this algorithm we may have studied in the operating system, right? And what is the importance of interrupt handling in RTOS environment? Why we are giving so much importance? Because we know that our subject is embedded system, and in the system module we are saying that real-time operating system RTOS is going to be the operating system that we are going for the embedded. Right? And what is the importance of using RTOS in embedded system? Because obviously the embedded system will be containing firmware. Right? Surely it will be containing firmware. So a little amount or a set of hardware contents, obviously we are going to use in embedded. And there is a huge probability of switching in between a software code and the signals from the hardware. There is a huge probability. Am I correct or not? So it is very important that you should handle the signals from the hardware. That's why actually we are going for the RTOS. So my RTOS should be capable of what? Handling the. That's why we are going to discuss this topic actually. And for discussing, for handling the different types of interrupt service routine, for different types of interrupt handling, we use basically three techniques. Have three techniques to handle interrupt. Or I can say there are three alternative systems that usually operating system will respond to a hardware source call or from the different source. And I will read it out. First one, direct call to an interrupt service routine by an interrupt source, and the interrupt service routine sending and an ISR enter message. So where it will send? It will send to RTOS. And second one, the RTOS first interrupting on an interrupt, then RTOS calling the corresponding ISR. And the third one, RTOS first interrupting on interrupt, then RTOS initiating the ISR and then an IST. So these are the three techniques. So we'll discuss it later. First one, direct call to an ISR by interrupt source and ISR sending an ISR enter message. So forget about the figure there. I will say the important keyword. The important thing that we need to know in this particular technique is that here the interrupt is going to invoke the ISR directly, right? That is, there will be an operating system working. The RTOS is working with its own function, and there will be the codes for some different interrupt services will be available. There will be lots of ISR available, right? For example, an ith interrupt is happening. Say a hardware resource is interrupting. A particular interrupt is happening, occurring. An event is occurring. An interrupt is coming. It will directly go to the interrupt service routine corresponding to it. The operating system will not having an intimation regarding the interrupt occurring. First, the interrupt is going to invoke the ISR directly. That is the first step that I can say. An interrupt occurs at hardware sources, calls an interrupt service routine directly, say interrupt service routine ISR I. Then that time the operating system will be executing with some its own tasks, ready, and the ISR will be having the ISR will be waiting for some interrupt. The interrupt occurs hardware, so it calls the ISR directly. You can see the figure as well. The step one that I have given, one labeled an arrow with one, it will moving to the ISR. In the figure, you can see that there are two boxes. First box is for the interrupt service routine, and next box is for the operating system. Right. an interrupt is coming and it is invoking the ISR directly. That is the thing actually happens. And what happens in the second is that as the ISR is starting, ISR start its execution. During execution of the interrupt service routine, it will send a message to RTOS. It will send a message to RTOS informing that, see, I have started my execution. In this interrupt service routine is executing. Now the CPU will be handled by this ISR, right? So this is the second step. So you can see that from the first block, there will be an arrow coming to the second one, indicating that the ISR start message, or we will say ISR I enter message, right? This message will be stored in the memory allotted for operating system message, and you can see that the arrow labeled 2, and in the left side of the box you can see that ISR I start message. So this is the second step. Now what happens in the third step is that, see, now my ISR interrupt service service is actually processing. During the execution of the interrupt service routine, there is a possibility, every time, we cannot say every time it will happen, there is a possibility that it will generate some events. It will generate some event messages, another message, intermediate event messages. And in accordance with that event messages, there will be some other subtasks or some other tasks will be initiated. Am I correct? So that is obviously possible in that if a particular interrupt happen and we are processing the service request, in that particular ISR, there is some other events happening and we can store that particular messages or the task that to be executed in accordance to that particular event, that should also be stored, which is needed to be executed after this, right? So that message will be stored in the memory. That's my third step. Now you can see that as the third step, there is an arrow from the ISR block to the operating system, where it is storing these event I messages or the subtask or the intermediate task which has been occurred to the events of the ISR, which is stored in the operating system block. That is the third step. And the fourth step is ISR, it completes the interrupt service routine, complete the execution, and then the control is returned back to the RTOS. How it will be returned to the RTOS? By sending a message, ISR exit message. That is, now the control is given back to the ISR. You can see in the fourth one, it is returned, that return label and an arrow labeled 4 will be giving to the operating. So these are the basic four steps you can see, right? First one, an interrupt calls the interrupt service routine directly. Then during the execution of the interrupt service routine, it will send an ISR enter message to the operating system, indicating that the control of the processor or the CPU will be handled by the operating system. Then the third one, during the execution, there is a possibility of another events to be stored and another task to be initiated, maybe initiated. That will be stored in the operating system. The execution of interrupt service routine is still processing, and after the execution, it will return to the operating system. You can see. So these are the 4 steps. Now, the real time, the RTOS have 2 choices. First, it will either execute the task corresponding to the ISR. It means what? The intermediate task or the task that has to be executed, which is whose event has been come in the ISR, or it will execute the task which has interrupted at the first. When the ISR comes, there will be an interrupt. ISR enter message is coming. That time, what the OS may have saved some context of some task. It may have doing some other task, and that task is interrupted already, right? So the operating system has 2 choices: either it will execute the task corresponding to the ISR, or the task which is already interrupted by the OS for executing the ISR first, right? And the RTOS or RTOS is processing this based on the priority. That is, it will check whether which has the highest priority, which task is to be executed first. The basic some priority operation it is going to. And you can see that in some RTOSs there will be a function called OS ISR SEM post. It's a function which actually posts a semaphore. An ISR semaphore will be posted. And you know that a semaphore, I can say it is an integer variable, or it's used for a flag which indicates which one is executed, right? And by returning from that particular OS, that ISR semaphore will be set. That semaphore will be set or reset. I can put some value, or if it is executing in ISR, that semaphore value will be say 1, and if it is returning back to OS, that will be some 0, something like that. So based on that, it is working, right? So I think you are having idea that how this first technique is happening. And now we will move on to the second one. That is RTOS first interrupting on an interrupt, then RTOS calling the corresponding ISR. So from the name itself, you can notice that here, if an interrupt occurs from a hardware resource, instead of invoking the ISR, this interrupt source is coming to the operating system directly. So here the RTO system master, real-time operating system, actually processing. It is actually handling the interrupt. How it is handling? So first step, I can say that RTOS first gets the hardware source call, interrupt of a task A. Say, for example, if you are saying that RTOS is executing with its function, and say it is doing some task named say kth task, now RTOS is doing. It can be any operating system function or any application function that it is currently doing, right? And then that time a hardware is coming. What it is doing, the current task, that the kth task will be allowed to execute its critical section, and or I can say it has to pass its preemption point. What it means? Say it is executing its current kth task. That time an interrupt is occurring. So what it will do? It will allow that particular task to complete its critical section. Otherwise, there is a huge probability. If it is not executing the critical section, there is a possibility of deadlock, and also that critical section part will be allowed to be executed for the kth task. Now, so you can see that as the first label which is coming to the operating system, right? So in accordance with that first step, our what will be happening, that critical section will be allowed to execute. And in the second step, as usual, what happens? RTO saves the contents of the second current task, right? That kth task contents should be saved. Where it will be saved? It will be saved in the operating system memory, right? So you can see that in the second step, you can see that task K context will be saved. Save context of the current task. The second arrow labeled 2, you can say save the context of the second task. Now you can say that what will be the third step? Now the RTO is called the ISR or ISRI if the ith interrupt is coming. Now RTO is calling the ISR. So if the ISR is going to be executed next, immediately after starting the ISR is starting, it will mask or it will disable the current preemption from the same or other hardware sources. It means that now an interrupt service routine, a service routine, it is not going to be break any condition is about to start. So as a precaution, what it will do, it will mask or it will disable the all other interrupt service routine which is about to come, which may come. It is going to block, so that this ISR should execute smoothly, right? So that you can say the third one, what happens? You can see the arrow from the block of operating system block to the ISR code block. The third arrow labeled 3, that the control is going to ISR. Now, what is happening in the fourth step? During the execution of the ISR, it generates some event messages, right? As usual, as we have seen in the first technique also, we can see that if the ISR interrupt service routine is executing, then we can see that there will be some other there is a possibility that some other event, some event has been occurred, or some event messages will be occurred, and there will be some task. So for example, we will say some jth task is occurring in accordance with the event that is caused in the IS. So that will be stored in our operating system memory. That has to be executed in accordance with the priority of the job, right? That will be stored in the memory. During the execution of ISR, there will be some task. Subtask, I can say, right? So you can see in the fourth step, you can see that in between the execution of the ISR, a fourth arrow is coming to the storage area where we are storing the event or message corresponding for some other task. That is in step 4. And the last step, you can see now ISR completes and control returns to RTOS. ISR is completing and the control is returned to RTOS. Just before the ISR end, what it should do? It should unmask or enable the other interrupt, so that the next ISR, if something is there, can come smoothly. That is the fifth step that you can see.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, sir. We have a couple of questions. So, shall we discuss that, or are you continuing the session? I think we have 3 questions here. So,
so is the 20 minutes or not?
Yeah, it's already passed.
So let me complete the third technique also. Then we'll discuss.
Okay, sir. That's fine. Thank you.
Students, so the moderator has told there are some questions to be discussed, and let us discuss the third topic. Then we will go for the question. Okay. Now, so we have discussed 2 techniques already. Actually, there are only one major difference in those 2 techniques. The difference is that in the first case, the interrupt is interrupting the interrupt service routine, or the interrupt is directly coming to the ISR area, and it is just intimating the operating system that it is started the execution of the ISR. And after the execution of that ISR, the control return back to the RTOS. Then RTOS is deciding, depends upon the priority that which task to be executed. Whether the task which has been already interrupted by the operating system earlier, or the task which has been produced or which has been intimated during the execution of ISR, that will depends on the priority, right? Now we will go on to the third one. Actually, in the third task, the first 5 steps, it will follow all the steps of the second system, but with some additional steps, right? Anyway, all the 5 steps means it is going to execute, or the operating system will be interrupted by the interrupter, and so on and so. So before going to that, we will discuss some concepts about the ISR. Actually, by handling an interrupt, we can consider 2 levels of ISR. There are 2 types of ISR actually. The first one is a fast level ISR. What do you mean by a fast level ISR? Fast level ISR is the actual ISR that we are discussing, right? The interrupt service request ISR, the IRQ which is coming from the hardware resource. That is a fast level ISR, and a slow level ISR as well. Slow level ISR means those services which are not that much important, that we will see. FLISR means a hardware interrupt ISR or a just ISR. It is very short, which has the highest priority. It will contain the important and the necessary code for handling hardware. That is the high priority ISR. And next one you can see the SLISR, that is the slow level interrupt service routine. This means this is also a part of interrupt service routine, but this has a lower priority. It will not contain any urgent information, urgent code or emergency code to be executed, which has the lowest priority than ISR, and it is called the interrupt service threads, ISTs, right? This is an IST will be corresponding to its corresponding ISR. it is not the direct interrupt services routine. It will be generated in between the execution of a particular ISR, the ISRs are generated. So this is the concept of a slow level ISR and a fast level ISR. So in the figure you can see what happening is that you can see the 3 blocks, right? Instead of 2 blocks in the previous 2 techniques, you can see the first block is my ISR block, the second block is my operating system block, and the third one is my IST. You can see that, right? Actually, what happens is that the first 5 steps are going to be the same. You can let us go for that. First one, RTOS will first get the hardware source called interrupt on a task, say K task. RTOS is interrupted. The current task K will be allowed to execute its critical section and to pass the preemption point. That is the first step you can see in the operating system. The first one is interrupt source is coming, and the second task RTOS save the contents of the task that it is executing. May the kth task is blocked, or it's save the contents of the second task, as you can see in the figure itself. And the third step, as usual, RTO is called the ISR. That is, the ISR starts executing, and during this execution, ISR is going to mask all other ISRs which may come in between. That is the third step. And in the fourth step, during execution of ISR, it may generate some event messages or which may indent to some other task. That obviously, and that task is going to be stored in the memory of the operating system memory, right? And the fifth step as well, ISR completes and control return to RTOS. ISR returning back to the operating system. So just before the end of the ISR, it is going to unmask all the tasks as well. These 5 steps already we have discussed. Now what happens? In the previous technique, we were saying that the RTOS has 2 choices and depends on the priority, something like that, it is going to execute. Instead of doing that, what RTOS is doing that before it executes its previously interrupted task, it is going to execute the interrupt service thread, the ISTs. That means the task which has been already stored in the memory in accordance with the ISR actually already executed. So there will be some set of tasks will be there, and it follow the order FIFO that have received the message from the ISR as per the priorities, right? So it is going to be executed in the 6th. That you can see an arrow from the operating system to into the IST. The operating system called the corresponding IST. That is the 6th step. And the 7th step, after executing all ISTs, an ISR may have invoked more than one IST, obviously. All those ISTs will be executed on some FIFO order or some priority order. Then after executing all ISTs, the control go back to the RTOS. That is the 7th step that you can see. It is controlled back to the operating system. Now, what will happen? Now, the only one task is remaining. That is already interrupted task is there, my kth task, which is interrupted by the operating system. It will retrieve the context of the interrupted task and execute if no ISR or ISC is pending execution in the system. Right. So here what only the 3 steps are. I am updating with the previous session. After returning back to the operating system, instead of assigning the priorities and all, the RTOS is just forwarding to the IST blocks of the ISR already executed, and there will be more than ISTs, more than one IST is according to that ISR that will be executed. And after executing all ISTs, the control is get back to RTOS on the step 7. And in the 8th step, there is only one task is left, right, or a set of other tasks to be executed for the operating system is left, starting from the case task whose context has been saved, which will be retrieved and it will be executed. So these are the 3 techniques that we usually follow for handling the interrupts. Hello,
sir.
Yeah, sure. Now, so
okay.
When session is over, then now we can go for the question.
Okay, so have you completed the total sessions?
No.
Okay, the session. Okay, then we can go through the questions very quickly.
Okay.
So I can read out the questions. The first question is, what will happen if two interrupts occurred simultaneously?
Actually, that's actually we are going to discuss in the next session. That if two tasks are coming in the quick section, that we will call that task as real-time task as aperiodic task.
Okay.
Aperiodic
So
task, that type of task that we are going to discuss in the next session. If two tasks are coming simultaneously means exact at the same point two tasks in the exact same point, that cannot happen, right?
okay.
That's not going to happen. And if an embedded system, we are going with the embedded system, right? In the working of
Yes.
an embedded system, which is going to be interrupted, a hardware resource is going to interrupt the process, right?
Okay.
The two hardware sources exact at the same time an interrupt is coming, then we will at that particular time we will consider about which hardware source is interrupting, and we will assign priority on that basis.
Okay.
Ready?
Okay.
And,
Okay.
so actually we are considering this task, the arrival time of the task or the phase of the task in the millisecond or microsecond manner, right? So two hardware resources, if an embedded system is executing two hardware resources, there is a less chances that two hardware resources will be invoking interrupt at the exactly same time. And suppose if two hardware resources are exactly invoking the same time, we will assign which hardware module has been interrupted, and we will give priority to that. Actually, for example, I am saying, if you are running with a washing machine, say, that's an embedded system, we can say, right? And an embedded system will be, say, that washing process has been occurring. And suddenly what happens if you open the door of that washing machine? What will happen? Obviously, you may have noticed that if you are opening that button, all the process inside that washing machine is about to stop, and a blink sound will be hearing, and there is a message. There is a blink light is to be blinked, and some sound is going to be produced in the washing machine that you can see, right? That you can see that.
Okay.
And at the same time, if for example, say my pipe is open, say at that time pipe is open, which is already which is another task. You can see that in the washing machine, the opening of the pipe is a task, right? Students, right? And but the coming of water, water through that machine, that won't stop. That process still executing. Why it is still executing? Because the system knows that taking water for the washing machine is important than suspending all operation if the door open, right?
Okay.
Can you follow me or not?
Yes. Yes, sir. So, may I move to the another question?
Yeah, next question.
Okay. What will happen to the current executing program when an interrupt occurred?
What I have already told. If you are following with the first system, that operating may have doing its own functions. It will be doing its own function, operating system function, or it will be doing some application function. That is the thing actually going to happen, right?
Okay.
And if an interrupt coming, if it is in the first case, the interrupt service routine is about to start. Immediately after getting the ISR enter message, the operating system is going to obviously to block, or it is going to be to block the current process, and it is to be saved. But before doing that, it will be allowing that particular task critical section to be passed out. Otherwise, what will happen if we interrupt that particular task without allowing its critical section? What will happen? That critical section will be pending, and all those two tasks which depends on the critical section of that particular task will be get stuck, and there is a possibility of deadlock that you may have studied in the previous session.
Okay, sir.
And
So, okay, is that fine? then I can read the another question.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the types of interrupts?
Types of interrupts. Actually, this types of interrupts is covers a large area. In what sense that you have asked, I cannot say. Anyway, I will say, as far as an embedded system is concerned, I can see there are basically two types of interrupts. As far as an embedded system is concerned, there will be hardware interrupt and there is a software interrupt. Obviously. Right. A hardware interrupt means what do you mean by a hardware interrupt caused by a hardware resource? And what is a software interrupt? If a software is calling an interrupt, for example, you people will be having, say, you are calling an instruction, say IST. In the 8086, there is an interest. This is called RST 5.5, 6.5, 7.5. And in the 86, you may have studied an instruction, say INT21H in the microprocessor. You may have studied, right? INT21H is there, INT10H is there, right? All these are software instructions. Agree? So,
okay,
in the program flow, if we are interrupting the operating system with a software code, that is INT21H, that is a software code, right? That is software interrupt. Ready?
Okay.
And those interrupts which are caused or which are which are invoked as the result of an event which is done by a hardware is called what? That is a hardware interrupt.
Okay.
For example, if you are running a microprocessor, suddenly the power goes off. Or suddenly I pressed the reset key. In between the code, if I'm saying I'm pressing a reset key, what happens? That is a hardware interrupt, right? Which will be processed first. Obviously, will be processed the hardware interrupt, right? Therefore, ISR will be processed. I think so. Right? So, as we are considering if you are discussing on that fashion, which will be the what are the types of interrupts actually? And I can say another definition that the maskable interrupts are there, non-maskable interrupts are there. What do you mean by maskable interrupts? Those interrupts that we can mask. And those interrupts we cannot mask, we will call what? Non-maskable interrupts, I can say. I didn't get in on what mean he have asked that question, that types of interrupts.
Okay, sir. We don't have any questions. So we have discussed all the three questions, so we can continue the session. Okay. Sir, before that, we have only 50 minutes left, almost 50 minutes left. So just want to inform you. Okay. Sir, we can continue.
So that session over. And now we will move on to the next thing called a real-time task. Why I'm discussing this task is, this session is, in the immediate session of the embedded system, you will be discussing about the task scheduling model, the different way of scheduling tasks that we are going to discuss. Obviously, you may have studied about some other basic usual algorithms like FIFO, round robin, something like that. You may have studied. On that time we were only we were scheduling the usual tasks. Now the real time tasks are going to be considered, right? In the RTOs, the task usually come with a real time fashion, real time task. So before going to study that topic, you need to be having some basic knowledge about what are all the real time tasks. Basically, what do you mean by a real time task? Actually, as per the syllabus, it will not be there. It will not be mentioned in the books and syllabus and all. But without knowing what is an interrupt, what is a real-time task, you will be finding some difficulties if you are following that scheduling model. That's why I have included that topic. Let us give a fast look. What do you mean by a real-time task? A real-time task means it will be generated in response to some event that may be either be external or internal to the system. These are the real-time tasks. An RTOS is functioning externally or internally. If something happens, some task to be done, that is called what? A real-time task. Actually, a real-time system usually consists of a number of tasks. Now, some terms related to real-time tasks, just for information I am sharing. A task is generated once a specific event occurs. And the time when that job is started execution, I mean the task is coming called what? That is the task. Real-time tasks normally require a large number of times, different instances of time depending on an event occurrence time. It means that a task will be coming in different times of instances. right? A task will be coming, say in the first second, a particular task T1 comes, then it will be coming on say 5th second, then it will be coming on the 8th second, right? And we will call the first time when this particular task comes, we will say this is the first instance of the task. And the second time when it coming, we will say this is a second instance of the task. Right? That is called a task instance. So what is a task instance? Task instance is the time when that particular task is occurring. If that task is occurring at the first time, we will say that's the first instance. Why I am saying this that in the scheduling we will be discussing using the term task instance. And what do you mean by a deadline? You know that a deadline is a time, right? Up to within what time it need to be completed. That is what it's a deadline. It is an instance of a real-time task associated with deadline by which it needs to be complete and produce result. The task, the result should be get on the deadline. What my point is, there are two types of deadlines. One is absolute deadline and there is relative deadline. These terms are going to be used frequently in the scheduling model types, that you will be get confused what do you mean by absolute and relative deadline. Simply I'll say the absolute deadline is that, for example, a task is coming, say T1, and I am saying that the deadline is 20 seconds. What it means? Within 20 seconds, means if you are starting from the zero, time zero, when the time is 20, within that 20 seconds, this T1 should be completed. There will be a fixed time value. The absolute deadline of a task is an absolute time value. That is called absolute deadline. And what is relative deadline? Relative deadline will come when it is related to the time that particular task comes. So, for example, if I am saying the relative deadline of the task T1 is 5, what it means? When that task comes, it should finish within 5 time units, right? If it is coming in the 15th second, it should be completed within 20. If it is coming in the 21st second, it will be completed in the 26th, right? That is the relative deadline. Okay, so there are absolute deadline. It means that an exact time value within that particular time, it should be completed. A relative deadline, it is related to the time when that particular task is okay. That is relative deadline. So please understand those terms. Now the important topic of this session. Actually, based on the way the real-time task occurring over a period of time, it is possible to classify them into 3 main categories. You will be heard about these tasks, these names. There are 3 types of tasks. One is periodic task. Second one is sporadic task. Oh, I have made a mistake. The third one is aperiodic task, right? Periodic task, sporadic task, and the third one is aperiodic task. Based on the time of arrival, based on the occurrence, based on the occurring time of the task, we can classify the real-time task into 3: periodic, sporadic, and aperiodic. We will go to periodic tasks. Don't confuse with this definitions and all. It's just a simple definition I can say. Periodic task means these tasks will repeat after a fixed time interval, and that time interval is called a period. What it means? These tasks will repeat after a fixed time interval, and that time interval is called period. It means what? Say, example, you can see that. Say a task T1, it is repeatedly arriving at a time 3, 9, 15, 21, right? So we can say that the period is 6. What it means? Its first instance is 3. So we can predict the next instance. It will be coming obviously in the 9th second. 9th second, the task will again come. And in the 15th second, it will again come. And the 21st second, it is going to be repeat. It is going to be repeat in the each 6 time units, the period unit. That is called what? Periodic task. Periodic tasks are sometimes referred as clock-driven tasks. Depends on a clock, it is what? Clock driving. Now I can say periodic tasks can be defined mathematically as a force. You can say a periodic task Ti, say ith task Ti can be defined mathematically as a 4 term. That is, first one is phi I. What it is? Phi I is the arrival time. That's the phase of the task. The time from 0, the occurrence of the task. For example, if phi I is 7, what it means? It is coming on the 7th second starting from the 0, right? So that is the first point, phase of the task. Second one is what? Ti is the period of the task, which I have already discussed. What is the period? What is the period interval? At what time interval it is going to repeat? And what is EI? It is the worst case execution time of the task. How long it will execute? Up to what time it is? What is execution time of that particular? That is EI. And what will be the DI? It is the relative deadline of the task. So anyway, it is going to be coming repeatedly, right? Coming repeatedly. So once completed, once came, what is the deadline of that task? At what, up to what time it should complete? That is deadline. Now I can say majority of the tasks present in a typical real-time system are periodic. Monitoring certain conditions, examples I'm saying, monitoring certain conditions, pulling information from sensors at regular intervals to carry out certain actions at regular time. The instance of the temperature, pressure, which are going to be vary, right? So we are going to we are going to we are going to monitor it on the different equal time interval. And chemical concentration monitoring tasks are normally generated through the interrupts received from a periodic timer. We are going to update that within a time. You can see that. If you are designing an embedded system for monitoring a particular, say for example, the temperature in a particular area. In our mobiles, usually a simple application is, right? So it is controlled by a periodic timer, obviously, right? A particular time it will refresh. We will say use the term refresh. What will happen? On that particular time, it will again check the temperature and update. So that particular task is going to be done within a particular time, in a fixed time interval. It is going to happen, right? And measuring the temperature and measuring the pressure of a person who is admitted in the ICU, say, or atmospheric pressure, whatever. Obviously, all monitoring services or all monitoring embedded systems will be follows periodic task. Now comes the sporadic task. Sporadic task, I think it's new to you. What is sporadic task is that, first thing, it will occurs in the random interval, no doubt. It will occurs in the random interval. For example, a task is repeatedly arriving. It will come repeatedly, no doubt, but we cannot say what to say. We cannot say, we cannot expect it in a particular time, something like that. We cannot say at what time it is going to come next. It is repeatedly arriving, for example, 4, 9, 16, 25, 32, something like it is coming. A sporadic task can be defined mathematically as 3 tuples. So before going to the tuple definition, I will say one more point. See, it is coming in the 4, 9, 16, 25, right? So first instance, it has come on the 4th one. I cannot say at what time it will come next, but I can say that for a particular time, it should not come. After a particular this time, it can come. That is a minimum time that we will be specifying. After that time, any time, this particular task can come. That is what actually called a sporadic task. A sporadic task will come randomly, obviously. Ready? But we can fix a particular time. We can fix a particular time distance. After that only, that particular task should come, or that task will come. That type of task is called what? Sporadic. Now we will go on to the tuple definition. It is a 3 tuple actually. And what is EI? It is the worst case execution of instance, right? And what will be GI? GI is the interval that I have already told. It is the minimum separation between 2 consecutive instances of the task. It's the minimum separation between 2 consecutive instances. And DI, that is what it is, a relative deadline that I have already told. Right? The minimum separation GI indicates that once an instance of a sporadic task occurs, the next instance cannot occur before GI community have been elapsed. Right? So you will be knowing what a sporadic task. Now, what will be my aperiodic task? No condition. Aperiodic task is one that occurs in random instance. Even 4, 9, 16, even 17, 18, 19, any time. And we can say an aperiodic task is a sporadic task with GI is 0. I can say that. What do you mean by GI? GI is 0 means what? At any time the next task happens. Even at the same time, right? Right? That 2 tasks one task is coming, that the same task can coming at the Same task can coming at the same moment. That means a similar task, same task can come twice at the same time. That is also happen. That's what I was saying about mentioning about when a doubt has. Thus, two or more instances of a periodic task might occur at the same time instance that is happening. That can happen. Ready? An aperiodic task can occur in quick session, hence it becomes very difficult to meet the deadline of all instances of an aperiodic task. Right? What happens if it is the same time? Either we will go for priority, and we cannot follow all tasks if it is coming as a aperiodic. So, what we were discussing in the topic, we were discussing what do you mean by a real-time task is, when a real-time task is going to be considered, and what you mean by a task instance, what do you mean by first instance of a task, second instance of a task, and so on. Then we were discussing what a deadline is. Not actually deadline is that actually what do you mean by an absolute deadline and what is a relative deadline. What one was a fixed time, and a related deadline was related to the relative time to the relative the arrival time, and the three types of real-time tasks: periodic tasks, sporadic tasks, and aperiodic tasks. Where periodic tasks are to be executed repeatedly after within a fixed task within a fixed time called a period. It was a four-tuple: arrival time, execution time, and period and a deadline. Sporadic tasks are those tasks which will come in random order, but only after a particular fixed amount of time. That is called GI, the minimum separation, and it was a three-tuple. And a periodic task. A periodic task means a task will come on the random instance. There is no condition. GI will be 0, right? And obviously, there is a possibility that a periodic task can may have at the same time. So I think that's okay for now. Now the next topic is the task scheduling model, and we can having that class. Thank you. Vishnu, hello.
Hello, sir. Yeah, I'm here.
That's
So, okay. Sir, hope you have already wind up the session. I mean, you are lecturing, right?
yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sir, we have a question.
Yeah.
So, may I move?
Yeah.
Okay. I can read that. Can an ISR be interrupted?
Yeah, obviously, actually, if the relevance of the question is an ISR is executing, I can design an operating system in such a way that an ISR can be interrupted, or I can design an RTOS in such a way that I should mask. It is not necessary that you can see in the second technique on the question. I have given in the third step. You can see that RTO is called the ISR. That is ISR start executing. The ISR at the start, I have given the term can mask. Should mask, I didn't say. Right? It can mask further preemption from the same or other hardware source. If it is designed in such a way that it is disabled all other tasks, it cannot interrupt. And if the RTOS has been designed and the masking of other tasks is done, that can, right? And in the start of the session also, I have given to the term, I have given, you can go to the session. The ISR cannot wait for, it will not wait for any OS function, application task, semaphore, mute, it will not wait. It will wait for some codes that may have another ISR, which will depend the code of the current executing. That means that this ISR needs the result of that ISR in some time, in that particular time. It can interrupt. I think it's okay now. If we can mask, no other interrupt is going to be executed. If we have designed in such a way that it cannot be masked, then the ISR cannot be masked. Right? Both ways you can design. That's how I am going to design my RTS, right?
Okay, sir. So we have another question.
Yeah.
Could you explain interrupt latency?
Yeah, interrupt latency is that actually latency always coming with a time map. right? Interrupt. See, we interrupt. Excuse me. Am I audible or not?
Yeah, sir, you're audible. It's clear.
Interrupt latency means it is the time actually between say an interrupt is happening, and the interrupt handler gives the time for it to execute, and the ISR is executing, and it is finishing. There will be a finishing time, right? From the
Okay.
opening time to the finishing time. In between that time is called what? Interrupt latency, right? It may
Okay.
vary if some other interrupts this ISR. It may vary, right?
Okay.
That is the interrupt latency.
Okay, sir. Hope we have no questions now, so we can wind up the session, I think. So thank you for sharing your valuable information and the lectures with our students. It was really a good session, and it was crystal clear to students as well as us. So thank you for coming and sharing this platform with us. Thank you very much. And I would like to give you, I would like to express my thanks to all attendees for the participation too. Thank you, sir.
Actually, can I get the feedback, or how are you going to provide me feedback or not?
Sir, as of now, we don't have any feedback right now. Let me check that.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay,
No.
maybe I can send you the feedback from after the class, sir.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.